Raise your hand if SMGs are your weapon of choice in first-person games or third-person games. It doesn't matter. In video games, they're quick, they're compact, they keep the pace of the game high. But have you ever asked yourself, hey self, what are the fastest firing SMGs that gaming has ever let you wield? Well, I've got the answer for you. Welcome to the page, everybody. Today we're going to be going over the 20th fastest firing SMGs in gaming history. You let me know which of these is your favorite. Drop a like. I love the comments I see where people say I take them on nostalgic trips throughout these top 25s and 20s. I appreciate all of you. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. Ring that bell. We are trying to get over 30% on the notification squad. At number 20, this is a tough list. The Risk Runner in Destiny 2. Now, with all the guns in Destiny 2, it can be hard to narrow down what's better or worse, but the Risk Runner is a good pick for this list specifically. This SMG is an exotic one that fires at 900 rounds per minute with a 37-round mag. Now, compared to other exotics, it's not top tier, but it's certainly a good gun when taken on its own. Plus, since it has an impressive fire rate, it gets on today's list. I think it's a good way to kick things off today. Now let's jump over to Battlefield, specifically Battlefield 4. The MP7. It is an iconic SMG that has appeared in lots of video games because it's got a unique design and often great handling. Now, the main traits of the MP7 are a big magazine, a high rate of fire, and somewhat low damage and rather low recoil. The Battlefield 4 MP7, it's no different. It features solid handling and a blistering fast fire rate of 950 rounds per minute. Now, it's a tad weaker than you would expect. It takes 5 to 9 shots to kill, but when you're shooting that fast, that's not a problem. And get ready, because we're going to eclipse 1,000 rounds per minute pretty fast on this list. Next up at number 18, the submachine gun, no fancy name here, in Left 4 Dead 2. Now, when you're mowing down zombies by the hundreds, it's good to have some powerful weapons at your disposal. The Left 4 Dead SMG is modeled after the real-world Uzi, but it fires way quicker. This thing will deal an even 20 damage per bullet with a 50-round mag and an intimidating fire rate of 960 rounds per minute. Now, when you're dealing with giant groups of weaker enemies, the SMG is a great choice for getting through them and just ripping right through. Now let's go over to CSGO. We're going to be bouncing all over some classic games today. The P90 comes in at number 17. Now, Counter-Strike is a game of precision and decision-making, so super spammy guns aren't usually the way to go like other games. However, if you do want a little bit of a bullet hose, the P90 is a good choice. Now, it's not the fastest gun in the game, but it's certainly the fastest SMG, and if you like spraying and praying up close, this is your gun. It fires at over 850 rounds per minute, has a 50-round mag, it gives you plenty of time to acquire your target and unload on them. The damage, it's a little low, but if you play Counter-Strike, you probably know that low damage isn't the end of the world if you know how to aim. At number 16, the MP9-N in Escape from Tarkov. How many of you are still playing Tarkov? Is it still booming like it was? This is a game all about survival and resource management. So, super fast ammo-eating guns, they're a little hit or miss. But if you want a total bullet hose, here's the MP9. I mean, it's the gun. It fires at a ridiculous 1,100 rounds per minute. With how lethal guns are in this game, you can kill people almost instantly with this thing. If you know, well, you know. At number 15, the Micro Uzi from Payday 2. Now, Payday 2 is more about strategy than weaponry, but that does not mean you can't have some awesome bullet hoses at your disposal. The Micro Uzi, well, it fires at 1,200 rounds per minute with a nice 32-round mag. We could ask for it to be a little bigger. It makes it great, though, for taking down hordes of enemies at once. Now, it's going to cost you $418,000 to unlock, but it's a ton of fun once it's in your hands. It's definitely a top-tier gun. Now, let's bounce over to Overwatch. What about Sombra's SMG? Now, Sombra's weapon of choice is an extremely powerful SMG that heavily resembles the MP7. Now, Sombra isn't meant to be a super offensive character, but rather a slow, more methodical one that breaks up enemy compositions. However, if you get into hot water, you can spray bullets at them at 1,200 rounds per minute. I mean, you can melt people up close, especially if you hit your headshots. Plus, since this is Overwatch, you have unlimited ammo, so you can spray away. Just spray away without having to worry about running out of bullets. Sombra is a pretty underrated character in terms of damage output. In her SMG, I think it belongs on this list. Now let's go back to Battlefield. Battlefield 3, the P90. This is a very recognizable weapon. It's got a weird design with the magazine on top. Now, it appears in lots of shooters and has remained very consistent throughout the Battlefield series. Many players will tell you it was at its peak, its best in Battlefield 3, when it fired at an even, smooth 900 rounds per minute. And it killed as few as 5 bullets, which made it a monster with DPS. Now, as you'd expect, it featured a 50-round mag by default, which allowed you to spray and pray to your little heart's content. Even if you couldn't aim, it didn't matter. It was awesome, and it's probably never going to disappear from the world of video games. Let's get a little more Battlefield love in here. The FMG-9. Yeah, Battlefield Hardline. How many played that game? Yeah, most of you probably know the FMG-9s from its infamous appearance in Modern Warfare 3, but it had another ridiculous showing in Hardline. Here, the FMG-9 was a submachine gun, and it fired at a very, very intimidating 950 rounds per minute. You could even put it in semi-auto mode if you wanted to, but I'm not sure why you would do that when you have this absurd fire rate at your disposal, but whatever. I mean, it had some generous damage up close, and it was nuts in Hardline. It really, really was. At number 11 today, the Vector in The Division 2. Surprisingly a solid looter shooter that improved upon the first game's formula all around. The game is all about the min and max, and while the Vector isn't as good of a gun, it's the fastest. It fires at 1,200 rounds per minute. Has a default mag of 25 rounds, which is some kind of troll. You're going to have to reload quite a bit. Now, the DPS is solid, but overall, there are better guns for the job. But this is not a video of the best SMGs. It's a list of the fastest SMGs, and the Division 2 Vector, it fits the bill. Now we've reached the top 10. It's going to get crazy in here. The rapid-fire SMG in Fortnite. Now, this is a weapon that has been up and down throughout the Fortnite lifecycle. It is low damage, but extremely fast firing. It's been buffed, it's been nerfed, it goes up and down. Like I said, the high fire rate is balanced out by a very, very wide bloom and very hefty recoil. But if you manage to get up in someone's face with this weapon, it's GG's. It really is. You're back to the lobby, if that's a thing. If you don't get, I don't even know how that works anymore. Get the card, get the van, whatever. Anyway, it fires at 900 rounds per minute, making it one of the fastest guns in the game, so it's on the list. Now let's give Apex Legends some love. The R99, one of the most intimidating weapons in this entire game. It's an ultra fast-firing SMG gun that even moved to care packages a few seasons ago because Respawn, well, they realized how powerful it was. Now the damage per bullet of the R99 is low, but it's firing at 1,060 rounds per minute, which gives it one of the best DPS values in the entire game. It does have a little bit of a kick, and you definitely have to be good at aiming and tracking, but if you're good with the R99, you're probably doing okay in Apex. Now, it may not be the flashiest or the most unique-looking gun, but it's certainly one of the most powerful guns in the game, and that's why it garners the number 9 spot. Okay, first timer on the list today, PUBG, the Chris Vector. PUBG is all about how quickly can you drop somebody, and the Chris Vector is going to help you stay on target. Firing at 1,200 rounds per minute and actually has pretty low recoil, which makes it one of the most accurate SMGs in the entire game. So what's the problem? Well, here it is. It has a 13-round mag by default, so unless you find some extended mags, it's kind of a joke. However, it does have a great fire rate and solid damage, so if you could stay on target for those 13 shots, you'll be sitting pretty. But even if you miss 1 or 2, you probably need to turn around and run. At number 7, the K10 in Battlefield, specifically Hardline. Yeah, Hardline was an underrated game, I mean, all things considered. It was very different from other Battlefield titles, but if you were willing to go along for the ride, it was fun. Plus, if you were a fan of super fast firing guns, you had the K10 at your disposal. It was one of the fastest firing guns in the entire Battlefield franchise, not just Hardline. It was part of the mechanic class, would cost you 33,000 to unlock, but then you'd be treated to this blistering fire rate of 1,200 rounds per minute, which just shreds people. I mean, it had one of the best close range times to kill in the entire game, and on smaller maps with tighter corridors, it was game over. So, I mean, you Battlefield players, tell me in the comments, how'd you feel about Hardline? At number 6, Rainbow Six Siege, the Vector 45 ACP. Introduced as part of the Operation Velvet Shell, the Vector is a rather low damage SMG, but it has intimidating fire rate, which makes it super lethal, even from mid-range, as long as you can control that recoil. Now, it's used by Mira, and I think one more. I can't remember who it is, though. Fires at 1,200 rounds per minute, makes it one of the fastest guns in the entire game, if not the fastest. I'm not for sure. You can fact check me. It's not super popular due to it being limited to just 2 characters, and also having a long list of drawbacks, but some Siege players have figured out the secret formula, and they make it work in their favor. Overall, it's a good gun if you know what you're doing. Yeah. Now we've reached the top 5. We haven't talked about a Gears game yet. Well, here we go. The Enforcer in Gears of War 4. Now, Gears of War is not a game with a whole lot of weapons, but every once in a while, A new one is added to the mix, and recently the Enforcer has been getting a lot of attention. This SMG was added to the franchise with Gears 4 and has remained a force in close-range combat. It fires at 1,200 rounds per minute. Makes it by far the fastest firing gun in Gears of War, not including heavy weapons, okay? Now, there's also a variant of the gun called the Shock Enforcer, which fires a tad slower, but it does a tad bit more damage. Even that version is firing at a ridiculous 1,000 rounds per minute. Yeah, they brought it down so much. Both Enforcers have an insane damage output, and they're worthy of a top 5 spot. Now let's move over to Warzone. At number 4, the MAC-10. Now, when it was added to the game, it plagued Warzone. I mean, the insane damage per second was just, it was something. Not only was this monster firing at 1,100 rounds per minute, but it was also extremely easy to control, and it dealt great damage, which gave it one of the best times to kill in the entire game. The MAC-10 had to be nerfed multiple times, and even today, right now, it's one of the best SMGs in Warzone despite being dialed back so much. This gun probably never, it's probably never going to get forced out of the meta, honestly, unless they nerf it into the actual dirt. And at this rate, I don't think that's ever going to happen. 3 left, guys. At number 3, on the fastest firing SMGs in gaming, the SMG in Halo 2. One of my favorite SMGs of all time. This gun was simply called the SMG. But, I guess it has an official name in the Halo universe. It's the M7, but let's just call it the Halo 2 SMG, okay? Extremely fast firing weapon. Dealt somewhat low damage, but the trade-off was a massive magazine as well as the ability to dual wield. It allowed you to effectively double the damage per second. Now, the M7 SMG fired at 900 rounds per minute, but when you had 2 of these babies in your hand, you were essentially firing at 1,800 rounds per minute, dropping enemies extremely quickly up close. Now, sure, you had some hefty recoil to deal with, but it's well worth it in the end. Plus, there's a few things as awesome in video games as dual wielding the Halo 2 SMG. At number 2 today, the Scorpion Evo in Black Ops 2. A fan favorite gun, mine as well. It was one of the most popular guns in the game. The fire rate was dumb. The DPS up close, even dumber. It would fire at 1,250 rounds per minute. I know the magazine was only 32 rounds by default. The reload animation, though, it was quick. So there wasn't a lot of downtime in between firefights. The Scorpion was one of the most intimidating guns in the game to go up against, but if you were one pulling the trigger, it was awesome. Few things in COD history make you feel as much of a boss as the Scorpion Evo did. But since we're talking about Treyarch games, I think I know what needs to be number 1 today on the list. I hope you guys agree with me. The PPSH-41 in World at War. This is a gun all of you know and love, or at least I hope you do. Submachine gun in COD World at War, and while it did have very low damage compared to the rest of the guns on this game, the fire rate. It fired at 1,250 rounds per minute. Despite having a very low damage per bullet, it had one of the fastest times to kill in the entire game. At the time of the game's release, the PPSH had the fastest fire rate of any gun in Call of Duty history, and today, 13 years later, it's tied for number 1. It's a meat grinder. It sounds amazing. I love it. For its reputation and its awesome energy, I'm giving it the number 1 spot on today's list. You guys let me know where you agree. Let me know where you disagree. Let me know one gun that got left off this list that deserved to get some love. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon.